Welcome back to another Chris McPherson Show Daily Dose, and it is time to pick apart the NRL Finals. We are getting to the pointy end of the season. The penultimate week of the year is here, and it's a happy time for some of us, a not so happy time for others. And joining me now is a man who's very happy, is Ben Dunn, one of our inside NRL experts. Dunny, you'd be up and about after that live stream that so perfectly captured my heartbreak.
Yeah, look, I won't say it was great to be a part of, but I won't say that it wasn't great to be a part of. Yeah, still riding the wave, mate, and trying to convince myself that the Sharks are a certainty this week and that I should definitely buy grand final tickets.
Well, you should always buy grand final tickets if your team's a chance, unless you're me and you booked early in the year to be in Melbourne for the weekend. Not thinking the Raiders were any chance, which it turned out I was right.
Nice. Yeah, well, there's every chance. But did you see the NRL stuffed up on Twitter and were asking who's going to be playing the Sharks? They leaked the script. I can send you the link if you like. Well, the screenshot if you like, because they've deleted it since. But yeah, they posted who's going to be playing the Sharks next week on Sunday. So I thought that was pretty funny.
There you go. There's the tip already out. Well, let's talk about it. Obviously, as we said, the Sharks came through with that win over the Raiders, and then the Panthers put in one of the most clinical first halves of rugby league, full stop. But finals rugby league, I think I can remember, to just knock the Bulldogs out before half-time. The Bulldogs tried to come back gallantly, but it was all too little, too late. They couldn't stage a Broncos-like resurgence. So, unsurprisingly, some people are saying it's scripted, that it's Penrith and Melbourne tracking towards a grand final, but the Sharks and the Broncos will have something to say. What did you take away? Obviously, we unpacked the Sharks game pretty heavily. What did you take away from the Panthers' performance?
Mate, it doesn't matter, I think, who they play, they're going to take some stopping. They just seem to have answers all over the park. Doesn't matter how you want to play them, whether you want to sort of go up the middle, their forwards are going to take the contact, they're going to match you metre for metre, they're going to make sure that you do it tough because their contact does not go missing for 80 minutes. They are very strong in the contest. You want to try and go around them, they've got the speed of the outside backs. You want to try and run at Blaze Talangi, he's going to put a shot on you. I just think that they've got an answer for everything. They're definitely going to be very hard to beat.
Yeah, I'm really looking forward to that matchup. I think it's going to be quite interesting in terms of how it shapes as well. But let's, obviously the Panthers are chasing, a piece of history here. The first team in the salary cap era chasing this sort of dominance. You've got to go back to St. George in the 50s when they won 11 straight. In an era when, admittedly, there was no salary cap, but there was lots of teams swinging lots of bags of cash around. But St. George would just go and buy the next best forward and the next best back each year, try and bring them in. Interestingly, no one played in all 11 of those premierships. I think Norm Proven played in 10. But the Panthers have got some certainly key pieces that have stayed there, and they'll move heaven and earth to keep there, which I think will be their 1, 7, and 13 realistically. But this dominance that they've put in, if they win this week, it'll be their 6th grand final in succession.
Yeah, it seems, like you said, pretty unprecedented in the salary cap era. And I don't know. I just don't know how they've been able to replicate it. You kind of look at the Melbournes and even the Broncos of the 90s, and they seem to have the systems and the pathways in place. And like the baby Broncos was a thing for such a long time that it didn't matter who they put in. They still did a good job. They were able to sort of fit in, do what they were supposed to do because they knew the system so well. And that just really seems like that is what happens at the Panthers. It's almost like they've got to use an IT term, like the plug and play. They can just, doesn't matter who they put in, whether it's Mitch Kenny. They were supposed to lose a lot when Coruscant left, and they don't seem to have really lost a lot at all. I saw something the other day. He's in conversations to be on the Kangaroo tour. They got Sorensen, they got whoever it is in the back row. Doesn't really seem to matter who they are. They're going to get those tough yards. They're going to make 50 tackles, and they're not going to make a mistake. And they just play to their systems. They get to their kick, and they just overrun you. I think it must be their fitness. They must be, because that's always what stood Dylan Edwards apart, is that he's just been so fit and he's been able to sort of always be there, whether it's backing up or running a line. He's always there. So I don't know whether it's the fitness, because their systems don't seem to like overrun you. Like you and I have both played a bit of footy. They don't seem to do anything particularly special, but they just have the people there at the right time.
Yeah, I think everything they do so well as well. And, I was watching on the weekend and you can see Connor Tracy getting himself into really good spots for Nathan Cleary's kicking game, and they put pressure on Cleary on his right. Tracy had sit to the left, and Cleary just managed to position himself and curl the ball back around and just force them to, over chase, over commit. And they did that really well last year too. They'd set up, and then, Cleary had set up to kick to one side, the fullbacks would go across, and then Luai had kick to the other side. Or Luai would get the ball at first receiver, then switch the ball back across, in which case the kick retrievers have adjusted. So it's such a phenomenal piece to look at. As you said, them and Melbourne have just built a dynasty on, bringing these players in and the next players up. I mean, Melbourne's been without, last week they were without their first, they've been without their first choice fullback and half. And again, we'll talk about that in a minute about them coming back in, but all of a sudden they just keep rolling on with, players that, other clubs would have ignored. Jonah Pezzett, the Knights let go. Grant Anderson was, again, in the Knights catchment. I don't want to rub it in too much to Knights fans, but, it's one of those pieces, and it's not just as short as the Knights clubs that have let these players, not quite what they wanted. Pappenheisen's another one. He was too small. You said Nick Meaney. He was at the Dogs. He was, again, a Knight originally. A lot of these guys, that have gone through there and gone on to become, Josh King. Doesn't matter where you look on that team. They find the best out of everyone. There's been very few players that have gone there and not quite found their best. The couple that I can think of are probably Sam Cassiano and George Rose. But even they found good football there. They weren't bad. So it's phenomenal to think about that system they've had and the consistency they've had under Bellamy in Melbourne's case. In Penrith's case, they've brought guys in. They brought in the Sorensens of the world. These sorts of players that weren't there. They've set up their future pathway. They had They went, okay, well, we're not going to be able to hang on to Jerome Luai forever. So they had Isaiah Katoa, who, he looks pretty handy, but the Dolphins swooped. And then they went, right, well, we'll bring in Blaze Talangi, who's hit the ground running. Coruscant went, right, we've got Kenny. These sorts of things. And they've just managed to keep those key pieces there. So it's really impressive. I think you need to doff your caps to what Cleary and Bellamy have steered. Obviously, there's a lot of other people involved there, but it's interesting, and other clubs are starting to take note of that. I think the Bulldogs are trying to execute it. They're just in a very early phase and trying to figure it out. But the other thing to remember with Penrith is they've got the biggest nursery to pick from. So that adds, another string to that bow. A lot of these players came through that are in this team now playing juniors together as well and came through the dominant junior side. So it'll be interesting to see how that shapes. But let's talk about this weekend's games. The first thing I want to ask you about, Melbourne on Friday night is designed to not clash with the AFL Grand Final. Surely that is a huge leg up to play a night game in Melbourne in September, where it's going to be a little bit cooler than Sydney, let's be honest, versus a day game on a Sunday. So not quite 2 full days of extra turnaround. Yes, they will have to travel back from Melbourne. The other team's going to have to travel back from Brisbane. But it's 2 days. Plus, they're going to be playing in Brisbane Sunday afternoon, daytime heat. That's going to take a lot more. It's going to be a faster game. There's going to be more running. It's a huge leg up, surely, for whoever wins that Melbourne Cronulla game.
Yeah, you'd have to think so, absolutely. And look, I completely understand what they're doing with the AFL Grand Final, but at the same time, the tip-off, or first bounce, whatever you call it, is 3 p.m. on Saturday in Melbourne. Surely something 7:30, 8 o'clock. The people are going to watch the AFL Grand Final. They're going to watch the AFL Grand Final. If they're not going to roll around and turn on their TV and watch the NRL finals, because let's be honest, that's the majority of people in Victoria who are watching.
On that,
it's not going to make that much of a difference.
If Sunday was an option and you're going to turn it around, why wouldn't you play the Broncos on Saturday night, play Sunday? You're then less than 24 hours. We're essentially then looking at a 20-hour difference.
Yeah. Yeah, look, I don't understand it, but as you said, it is a huge advantage, especially when you're going to a one-off game where you've got 2 extra days to recover, to feel fresher, to work on your fitness, your combination, just your trick plays, your special plays, whatever it is that you need. You've got that extra 36, 40 hours.
Just to recover, right? Like normally they're going to have a day off to recover. They could be then going into their first, they'll have the day off and then they'll have their recovery, normally walkthroughs, those sorts of things, first look at film, anything else they want to do on day 2. They're doing that while the other team's playing.
Yeah. And then that gives them that leg up that they don't have to be doing all that sort of stuff while the grand final week celebrations are happening, while they're turning up to lunches and breakfasts and marches and parades and whatever it is that the NRL are organising this year. They can already be focused on their preparation, know who they're playing, be well prepared. Doesn't matter who they play in the end, because they can have stuff ready to go and they can be back fully recovered, as you said, ready to hit the ground running first thing Monday morning.
Well, the good news is they will have a full 7 days because it'll be a twilight or nighttime grand final, as we know, because, that's the bugbear of many. But they will get that full turnaround. We'll wait and see whether or not, I'm sure there'll be people analysing it. If the team that wins on Sunday, they'll come up with a reason why a shorter turnaround was better. But we'll wait and see. One thing I did love in the lead up, let's go to the Broncos and Panthers game. The Reece Walsh interview about, how do you deal with Nathan Cleary? Now, Reece Walsh, clearly not lacking in confidence, but I did love, like, it's a dumb journalistic question, right? Like, it's a low hanging fruit. And he just turned around and said, well, how are they going to deal with us?
Yeah, look, exactly the way you got to answer those sorts of things. And a better probably take on what Cronulla was doing last week that we sort of touched on in that we don't care about them. Like, talk about us a little bit rather than Cronulla doing the whole woe is me. No one talks about us. He's just tried to switch the whole narrative straight away, which I think was, accurate because he's arguably been the form player of the finals. So how are they going to stop Reece Walsh, let alone how are they going to figure out Nathan Cleary? But while we're sort of still on the Broncos, I'm interested in your opinion here. Are they making the right choice bringing Reynolds back for this game?
I think that you need to bring Reynolds back. I think if you've got that player fit and firing, had Billy Walters not got injured, it might have been a different question, but I think they need to go with a first choice halves. I think you need to bring Ezra Mann back onto the bench. But I think if Mann was fully fit, I don't think he's fully fit is the piece. I think if Mann was fully fit, again, it's a soft tissue injury, we know that, then you might look at, maybe moving him into the 6 and moving Ben Hunt to 9, then using Corey Pakes off the bench. What I'm really looking forward to on a dry, fast track is seeing Ezra Mann coming in against tired bodies, playing off Reece Walsh, who, if I'm the Broncos, I'm using Reece Walsh out the back of shape, not actually using him as a decoy for the first 20 minutes until everyone's tired. They've chased. Wait for the edge back rowers to relax, and then bang, he gets in there. And you do the same thing again in the second half, but this time all of a sudden you got Ezra Mann as the foil. Use Katoni Staggs. They did it really well against the Raiders. But yeah, look, I think Reynolds and what he's done, you need to bring him in there. How they work out the exact playmaking duties between him and Ben Hunt is, something that Michael Maguire, remembering, yes, he coached the West Tigers, but that wasn't really a Michael Maguire-style team. This is a team that he's got with elite talent, prepared to do what's asked of them, no pushback, none of that. They're, all at the top tier pushing along when you have a look at this squad. They are exactly what he's shaped to do. And you have a look at him. The last sides he's coached before this side, he coached New South Wales State of Origin side to a series win. He coached the Kiwis to a win over the Australians in the Pacific Nations Cup. Now he's got the Broncos. That's a nice little trophy cabinet that that he's ticking along there is Michael Maguire.
Yeah, my whole thought though, like I come back to the age-old adage is that, like, and you touched on the Billy Walters thing, like you can't help, you have to replace him. But you said Ezra Mann. Do we know he's fully fit and firing? How do we know Reynolds is? They're coming up against a red-hot Panthers team. He's going to be defending or trying to counteract Nathan Cleary, of all people, and trying to sort of hold his stamp on the game. And we know Reynolds can try too hard at times. And does that then lead back into what Reece Walsh was doing, where he was then trying to overcompensate and he was trying too hard? And I don't know. I just think it's setting up for a perfect storm for Penrith here, and I'm not confident in the Broncos, and the fact that Reynolds is underdone. This final series has been one of the best we've seen in a long time, and I'm not quite sure that he's going to be up to standard.
Yeah, it's an interesting one. I guess my question would be, what do you do if you don't play Adam Reynolds? Because if you don't play Adam Reynolds and you don't play Ezra Mann, Reynolds' recovery is allegedly, according to the Broncos, again, take what you will from that, been better. So that's the interesting one for me. If you don't do that, all of a sudden, then you're relying on someone like a Tyson Smoothie, who he's an interesting selection in himself, very different to Pat Carrigan. Carrigan's been the right hand to Payne Haas, the 1-2 punch there. Smoothie more of a ball playing 13. So I'm wondering, do we actually see him there? Do we end up seeing a Hetherington come into the starting lineup and then Smoothie comes off the bench? But then you've got Smoothie and Mam coming off the bench. They've got Selwyn Cobbo on the extended bench too. Like, he actually got through a game last week in Queensland Cup. I'm still bemused as to how the hell he qualified. But anyway, that's not a problem for us to talk about. But yeah, so it's really interesting. I think the Broncos have got the ability to beat Penrith, but you sort of alluded to it before. Everything needs to work perfectly for them. And Penrith, they don't need to be off by much. So let's not kid ourselves that there's a huge difference between these two teams. But if both these teams are 100%, Penrith win this game by 8 to 10. If Penrith are at
Yeah,
98% and Brisbane are 100%, though, Brisbane can win it by 4-10. So that's the margins of difference I see in this game. It's going to be interesting. The one thing that intrigues me is that Penrith, they're coming off night football. They're going into day football. It tends to bode really well because all of a sudden you have a look at how expansive they were in night football, drier conditions, faster track, athletic, fit side. If they get out of the gates like they did against the Bulldogs, the Broncos, they're not going to chase down a 16-point lead against this Panthers side. They're not going to be a faders.
no, 100%, you're right. And then there was an interesting stat I saw the other day. Oh, actually, I think it was on Total Footy. They had it on Monday night. Nathan Cleary has not lost a day game since 2019. Like, that is some sort of stat. Like, I honestly don't know how many he's played, but to not lose a day game in 5-6 years, that's incredible.
Yeah, I think the Panthers have lost one or two in that time, but it's been when he's been out injured. But yeah, I mean, when you think about how many day games are played, Penrith would admittedly play a lot more night games, but that is still quite a phenomenal statistic to think. And, again, I think it just talks to his control. And I think that's why they've gone with Reynolds Brisbane. That kicking game of Reynolds, if he's on, is probably close to the best or the closest to matching it with Nathan Cleary in terms of how he can control the game. But is he fit? Is he on? That's the question. It's going to be interesting to see. I hope he is because I think this could be an absolute blockbuster with the form the Broncos have been in, those middles going forward. Obviously, Penrith doing what they do, their edges punching in hard. Like, this is going to be an absolutely cracking game. There's good matchups all around. But it's time to put our money where our mouth is. I'm actually going to go the Broncos to win this one. I'm going to go the Suncorp crowd to get them over the line. I'm going the Broncos to win this one by 4 points.
Ooh, see, I'm on Penrith, so we'll have a stoush again this week. But I don't think it'll be close. I'm not saying that it's going to be 13 plus, but I think it'll be over 10. And I think Penrith do it comfortably. There's at least 2 tries in it, I think.
All right, well, there we go. Let's move back to Friday night and let's talk the Storm and the Sharks. And we've kind of picked this apart a little bit, but the highlights or headline point here is the fact that Pappenheisen and Hughes are back in. The Sharks are going to send a lot of traffic at him. Teague Wilton's going to have a job. His one job is run at either shoulder because it doesn't matter. He's had a dislocated shoulder. He's had a broken arm. Work him out. Find out early if he is up to it. And if he is okay, well, then we'll go back to our plan B and plan C. The good news for you is I think it's something like 7 or 8 games that their first choice spine has played together for the Storm this season. They're 1, 6, 7, and 9. So Pappenheisen, Munster, Grant, and Hughes. Only one team's beaten them in that run. Round 11, the Cronulla Sharks, when they've had those players in there. So maybe it was at Shark Park.
It was at Shark Park, and it was a bit of a slog. It wasn't like it was like we didn't run away with that game at all, but it was definitely a battle and something that we came out on top of. But I think we've had a bit of a rivalry with them since 2016, and I think because of that, we always get up to play the Storm, and we're not afraid of them. So we, as Cronulla Sharks, aren't afraid of them. I personally, as Ben Dunn, the Cronulla Sharks fan, am afraid of them. If there's one thing that our wingers and even our fullback tend to struggle with, it is the high ball, and they are so good at it with Warbrick and Coates. If they're kicking to those corners and we're standing still, flat-footed, waiting for that ball to land on us, and they're just jumping over the top of us like we saw last time we played the Storm, it's going to be a long night. But like you said, if we're able to sort of get our systems in place where we can run at Hughes all night and make him use that arm, make him use that shoulder. And I think they're going to change a little bit. I think we're going to see AFB running wide. I think we're going to see Kafusi and his offloads running wide. I think we're going to be definitely targeting him and see if we're smart, see how that goes and try and work that out. And then hopefully which of our halves are on this week, we can pick it up pretty quick. And if it's not working, we'll switch sides and attack and move down the other way because, I mean, they've had some turnover in their outside backs with Chan and all those sorts of guys going out. So, look, there's an opportunity there. We're not afraid of playing in Melbourne. See how we go.
Yeah, I think the opportunity for you, it's something that's very un-Melbourne-like, is that Melbourne's forward pack hasn't been going forward in the same manner that it usually has. Obviously, Nelson Asafa-Solomon is out. Utoy Kamanu, he has gone forward since he left the Tigers, but he hasn't taken the leap maybe that we expect that comes with going to Melbourne. By no means he had a bad year. It just hasn't been a standout. Josh King is, you're going to get 7.5 out of 10 every week out of Josh King. That's what Kingy does at Melbourne, and he's, really solid. Katoa on that edge. I'm looking forward to those battles on the edges. But if you can get Rudolph and Fanua-Blake rolling forward, obviously they're going to be trying to do what the Roosters tried to do but failed to do. Try and figure out how to get Fanua-Blake down. He's so big. He's so strong. He gets that sort of TP stance, and you're just like, it's such a big, rangy legs, but he's so strong at the same time. Such a base that they can't bring him down. He then gets that fast ball for Blake Brayley, the fast play the balls, and all of a sudden that's where you guys start getting forward. And the Billy Burns, we saw it against the Raiders, Billy Burns and Teague Wilton lines really start to come into it. Then you bring Britton Nakora on against, tired defence, and all of a sudden game on. That's kind of the advantage I feel. And as you said, disrupting the kicking game, because that's such a weapon, especially if Hughes is on and he's fit. He'll be able to kick. It's just about getting pressure on him, which is hard to do, as we saw in the Raiders and Broncos game. It's hard to get pressure on kickers, but getting that pressure on to allow your back three to go forward, if you can get those roll-on meters, that's going to be a big thing for you guys.
Yeah, absolutely. And then they're also, especially the Katoas and even the Arrows, they're quite good at that second phase play, getting those offloads, and they've got such dynamic outside backs that they can really push off it. So I think if we can limit their opportunities at second phase, like we did against the Raiders, then I think, like you said, a fair chance. Our middles have been playing so well and really sort of getting over that advantage line. So hopefully we can continue that. Blake Brayley gets on that front foot again, and then our halves can play off that. We really just need to sort of repeat what we've done these first 2 weeks of the finals. Bash them through the middle, spread the ball when we need to, and attack some edges. But, we really need to make sure that we're not giving them too many attacking kicks, because that's a little bit of their strong suit and our Achilles heel. So see how we go.
Yeah, certainly that leaping of Xavier Coates is an absolute powerhouse manoeuvre for them, shutting down the battle of the fullbacks for each side. Will be interesting too if Kennedy can get going against Pappenheisen. We'll wait and see. I think I know where you're tipping. I don't know whether you're going to like my tip or not, but I'll let you go first.
Sharks 13 plus, mate. Load up. The more you bet, the more you win.
Yeah, where do you get those gambling voiceovers at the end? We might need one of those. I've actually got the Sharks winning this by 4.
Oh, all right.
I just think that, as you said, I think that they don't fear them. I think the mobility on that bench, if you can get the best out of, your rotations, with Kafusi and Hamlin-Uele coming through. Like I actually see that the forward pack is a big matchup. The niggle for Hughes, again, it'll be interesting to see. Like, it's a very short turnaround from a broken arm plus that shoulder injury. If he goes down, yes, Tyron Wishart's there, but it changes their rotations massively. And starts to put a lot of bigger minutes on forwards that aren't quite delivering at the moment for them. So I think that the Sharks will get this one done, and the Sharks Broncos Grand Final 1997 Super League all over again.
Oh, finally redemption, bring it back. They've been waiting for this.
One premiership in nearly 60 years. Could they make it 2? Anyway, 2 wins to go. As always, Ben Dunn, a big thank you to you for joining us, and good luck to your Sharks, mate. As I said to you last week at the end of the live stream, that's the bandwagon I'm now on.
Perfect. Appreciate it, mate. Thank you very much, and look forward to discussing more with you next week.
And, of course, if you haven't already, make sure you subscribe to our YouTube channel. You can hit the button down below. Hit the bell as well to get notifications on all of our videos. And you can follow us along on our social media channels as well to keep up to date in between videos. You can find us on all your favourite social platforms at The Chris Mack Show. Until next time, thanks for tuning in, and we look forward to talking the black and white of your sports. No greys here very soon.